Everybody ready?
Yes.
Alrighty. All right, welcome everybody to Unchained Disciples. We are in our series, still seeking wholeness. We're looking at spiritual warfare. Today we're going to be looking at generational curses, looking at blessings and curses, part 2. I start off by reading Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. It says, I bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on the earth will be blessed through you. So this is what God promised to Abraham. He would bless those who blessed him, and those who cursed him, he would curse. And all the people of the world would be blessed through him. So let's see. So I got a question for you guys starting out. How does God treat someone that he hates? How does God treat someone that he hates?
He blesses them. He loves them and blesses them.
He blesses them?
Come on, man. He treats him well. He does. Well, hate is not the way we see that hate.
Okay.
Because he's God of love, and no matter how bad somebody is, he still loves them, but doesn't, hates their behavior, but not the person. Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts on it? We're going to get to it later on, but just discussion.
Yeah, I don't think God hates anyone.
Okay. So God doesn't hate anyone. All right. So there was one passage where it says, oh, go ahead. Were you going to say something, Alvin?
Yeah, I guess God is love, so he can't hate anybody. But I guess there is consequences for sin, right?
Okay.
So that's what I think.
Okay. All right. So there was one passage where it said, Jacob I loved, and Esau I hated. So there was one passage where God mentions hating someone. It's not clear why. He said, Jacob I loved, Esau said, but we'll get to that. We're going to get to that later on. We're going to get to that later on today. Okay, so some people go through life thinking that, has God cursed my life? Has God cursed my life? And today we're going to talk about generational curses. Some people think that, well, my family may be cursed. Maybe it's because my uncle was a murderer or was a Satanist or a molester, and therefore, we're all being punished for it, or something that bad happened in the family chain. And there's a lot more talk now. You hear about generational curses. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about curses from God. A little bit of tidying up from the last lesson after getting to study a bit more. And so we'll look into it. Generational curses. So here we go. So this is the outline for today. This was our introduction. Then we're going to review our traits of wholeness. We're going to review what we've talked about so far, spiritual warfare. We'll talk about why do bad things happen? Why do bad things happen to us? Why do bad things happen to good people? Why do bad things happen to bad people? Why do bad things happen in general? We'll talk about miracles. We'll look at the curses of the law. Then we'll talk about generational curses. Look at the fact that Jesus took the curse for us. Covenants with other spirits. Final thoughts on curses. Natural causes for general curses. Defense against demonic attacks. And then we'll close the conclusion. We'll look at cycles. So that's the outline for today. And so as I mentioned, we're still in our series, Seeking Wholeness. It may have seemed like we ventured off a little bit in the spiritual warfare in the last couple of lessons, but this one is more in line with the rest of the series, Seeking Wholeness. We're in the series, Seeking Wholeness, looking at how to be spiritually, emotionally, and mentally healthy. Welcome, Natalie. Looking at how to be spiritually, mentally, and emotionally healthy. So we want to be free from oppression from the past. And also we want to be oppression from ourselves, oppression from our thinking, oppression from strongholds, and oppression from the enemy. There's a Greek word used in the New Testament called sozo. When it talks about someone was saved, meaning saved to eternal life, they were sozo. But it also says, it's used for the word healed. By your faith, you were sozoed, you were healed. It's the same word, but it's also when he says you were healed, meaning delivered from demon. It's the same word. So he uses the same word for salvation, which is used for healing, which is used for delivering demons. And it's the concept of wholeness. So being sozoed is to be made whole. So in every way. Hope from demonic oppression, from health, from your sins. So sozoed is to be made whole from all of that. And so we're looking at wholeness. We're looking at how to deal with life's current stresses and also how to deal with emotional experiences from the past and traumatic experiences from the past in this series. We're not just looking at how to get eternal life, but also how we can have joy, peace, patience, and self-control while we're here on earth. So we've identified some traits of wholeness that we're striving for, and we've listed them. So we've been in this series for the past 2.5 years, but we list them every week. We'll list them again. This traits that we're striving for: authenticity, and we've had lessons on each. So if you look on the website, well, maybe not all of them, but we're still going. A lot of these we've had full lessons on, or some of them we've had multiple lessons on. So we're looking at how to be authentic, how to be honest, kindness, not seeking external approval or validation, living by values and principles, how to set boundaries. We had 4 or 5 lessons on setting boundaries, taking ownership of our responsibilities, living with passion and purpose, optimism, confidence, how to have healthy relationships with others, not losing control of our emotions, being free from addiction, addressing conflict with truth and love, being vulnerable, not being critical or judgmental, not being jealous, forgiving those who've wronged us in the past, knowing that we're worthy of receiving love, not being afraid to fail, able to manage irrational fear, worry, and anxiety, selfless encounters with others, not manipulating others to try to control their actions or their reactions. We want to care about how others feel. We want to be patient. We want to not give in to peer and social pressure. We want to be able to communicate directly. We want to not take responsibility for other people's feelings and not expect others to take responsibility for ours. We want to be slow to anger as God is. We want to have the ability to maturely express our wants, needs, and desires. And ultimately, we want to be led by the Spirit. We want to become aware of the issues that we have in our lives, the wounds that we haven't healed from, and then also look at how to fix those issues, not just becoming aware of them. So those are the goals of this series. And bit by bit, we are hammering away at our issues. Let's see. And so now we're going to review spiritual warfare. I'll start with a video. One pastor from one of our neighboring churches is actually in the middle of a lesson on spiritual warfare. I've just found out, coincidentally. So I'll give a minute clip from him.
And so I don't want you to be wigged out at a pastor that's finally going to get up here and really talk them and pull back the veil on this spiritual realm that is working and many times working against us, and we don't even know what to fight. We got a generation that is being medicated and dumbed down 10 times more than any other generation. Why? You can't medicate a demon. Well, we go to therapy, and I believe in medication, I believe in therapists. Don't get me wrong, don't twist it. But you can't counsel a demon. When the demonic is involved, it has to be cast out and it has to be broken. That's why Jesus said, when you cast out devils, the kingdom of God has come upon you. He says, when you move one kingdom out and bring another kingdom in, he said, that's when you know that the kingdom of God has come upon you. And so I don't want you to be wigged out at a pastor that's finally going.
All right. So that's a take on that. So we're going to review. So reviewing what we've done so far, spiritual warfare. we looked at the armor of God. The armor of God is the weapon that, welcome Kenneth, the armor of God is the weapon that, although we heard the pastor just say that, you got to cast it out, but the armor of God is the weapon that Paul gave us as the primary way to fight our spiritual warfare, was the armor of God. He said we have an enemy, an unseen enemy. It's the devil. It's a living, so that the armor that he gave us was living a life of truthfulness, living a life of moral righteousness. Most of the churches that we see fall, had the pastor have been living morally righteous, that it wouldn't have happened. Believing in the gospel of Jesus Christ. So knowing the gospel and believing the gospel is our defense against the enemy. Faith, our faith, having faith in God, having the hope of salvation. So believing that our future is brighter, having the hope of salvation. Reading our Bible, reading the Bible, and hearing and obeying the Holy Spirit, being led by the Spirit. Those are our primary weapons in spiritual warfare. Those are our primary weapons against the devil, is the armor of God. Okay, then we talked about the devil. We talked about the devil. We looked at some of Satan's methods. He tries to tempt us by offering us material things. We saw Jesus in the wilderness. He tries to also attack us by taking away material things. We saw what happened to Job. Attacking our health. And so some correct doctrine that we saw in the various studies of interacting with Satan, looked at the different interactions with Satan. We saw that some of the problems that happen in our lives are spiritual. So some of the doctrines that will help us, meaning that these are some of the truths that we need to believe in order to navigate the world from a Christian mindset. Some problems that happen are spiritual and need a spiritual solution. But on the other hand, there are some problems in the world are natural as well. So we don't want to be too far slanted one way or the other. Negative consequences aren't always a result of unrighteousness or sin. Negative consequences aren't always a result of unrighteousness or sin. And negative consequences aren't always God punishing you. Negative consequences aren't always God punishing you. So we saw that was Job's issue, was that he didn't understand that. Or his friend's issue was the second one. And then we looked at seeking other spirits. We saw that the Israelites and others would seek other spirits. They built idol. And God warned us against worshiping other spirits, against consulting other spirits, petitioning other spirits, so any type of interaction with other spirits. In our last lesson, we looked at curses. What is a curse? A curse, according to Oxford Dictionary, is a solemn utterance intended to invoke a supernatural power to inflict harm or punishment on someone or something. It says it's a solemn utterance, so it's something you say, intended to invoke a supernatural power. So you're trying to invoke something in the spirit realm to inflict harm or punishment on someone or something. So that's what a curse is. A curse is a spiritual force. It's a force of attraction. So a blessing is a spiritual force. A curse is a spiritual force. So a blessing attracts positive things into your life. If you have a blessing over your life, if you're blessed, if God has blessed you, that attracts positive things. If you have a curse, that attracts negative to your life. And curses are carried out by spirits. So to put someone under curse is to authorize or to set up some type of condition around them or on them. Condition is certain things don't happen. So someone having favor is a condition that brings help from people to that person. So it says Jesus and was it Samuel? Jesus, they grew in favor with God and man, meaning that they grew in favor in the physical dimension and favor in the spiritual dimension. All right. And then we looked at the question of, can a Christian be cursed? Mm-hmm. And so we'll revisit that answer again this week. But we looked at Genesis 3:17. Who has Genesis 3:17? Oh, Chris.
Yeah, I have it.
Genesis 3:17, to Adam he said, because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat of it all the days of your life.
All right, so once Adam sinned, God cursed the ground. So now it's not as easy for fruit and things to grow. We have to work, till the soil, and that's a curse that God put on us. And so we see that the dirt doesn't respond differently to Christians. You know, because you're a Christian, the dirt doesn't respond differently than it does. So we can be definitely affected by a curse. We can be affected by a curse that was done. And so we'll revisit this in a little bit. I was looking at, there's a story about Balaam in Numbers chapter 22 and 23. Yeah. There was a king, I think his name was Balak. So when the Egyptians got out of Israel, when the Israelites got out of Egypt, there was a lot of them. They were huge in number. And so as they were going through this Moab, the king got scared when he saw them coming. So he sent word to Balaam, and he told Balaam, he says, I hear that, you know, if you curse someone, then they're going to be cursed. And so he asked Balaam to curse the Israelites. And Balaam attempted to curse the Israelites. And then God told him, well, you can't curse them because they're blessed. And so he said, oh. And then he went back to the king. And as a few things happened, and the king told him to try again and try again. And basically Numbers 23:8 was his response. Numbers 23:8, who has that?
I do.
Okay.
And this is out of NIV. How can I curse those whom God has not cursed? How can I denounce those whom the Lord has not denounced?
Okay. And we saw that he was unable, so his curses worked. You know, he was known around town that his curses worked. The king sought after him. A king of a mighty country sought after him. But he couldn't curse them because God had blessed them. So God didn't allow him to curse them because they were blessed by God. And so that's one thing we saw in Proverbs 26:2. Who has that?
I have that.
Okay.
Proverbs 26:2. Like a fluttering sparrow or darting swallow, an undeserved curse does not come to rest.
An undeserved curse does not come to rest. So there has to be some reason for a curse to rest on you. There has to be some reason. So someone has to initiate it, and it has to be allowed for some reason. God has to allow it. So we saw in the Balaam example, God wouldn't allow the Israelites to be cursed. So permission has to be given. Permission has to be given. You know, that could be based on your behavior, could be based on ancestors, which we'll look at. Yeah. Welcome, Helen. Welcome, Helen. Sure.
Hi, Michael. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm here with Taos Ono, also my husband.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I remember you. Okay. Welcome.
Got in a little late, but
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, we're on a little different type of topic than you were here previously. We're looking at curses actually today, or generational curses. Generational curses. So we saw that, you know, so a curse has to have some reason to land on you. And so there are curses from God put on people. There's curses. It could be based on your actions, maybe a covenant you broke. We'll look at, you know, ancestral. Last week we looked at witches. And today we're looking at specifically, so God's curses. So a curse only has as much power as a person who speaks it. Curse only has as much power as a person who speaks it, or the entity in which they're in covenant with. So if they're in covenant with a demon, then it has as much power as a demon. But no curse has as much power as God's curse. God's curse. And in the Bible, we saw God cursing individuals, nations, the ground, the animal. He cursed the serpent that he had to crawl on his belly for the rest of his days. And in the last lesson, we talked about defenses against curses, living righteously, prayer, specifically in the name of Jesus. And we saw that praying in the name of Jesus means that we can't stand before a holy God because we aren't completely righteous, but Jesus is. So when we come in the name of Jesus, we're saying this is the authority I have to even come in your presence, God, is through Jesus's authority. And this is the authority that I'm asking for my petition under. And then we also looked at mercy. Mercy, and said mercy is the system that God has put into the kingdom in which guilty people are made free. So you often hear it said, grace is when I get something I didn't deserve, and mercy is when I don't get something I do deserve. So mercy is I do deserve something, but I'm going to ask, God has put in a provision only for humans that even though I deserve this, I'm going to ask you not to give it to me, God. Even though I deserve this punishment, I'm going to ask you, God, not to allow me to have it. And only we, so angels don't have that option. There's only something human has. And we saw that like in Hezekiah. Isaiah the prophet went to him and announced, God has said you're going to die. And Hezekiah went back to God and plead, let me not die. And so even though there was a prophecy given, a great prophet pronounced it, God said, okay, you get 15 more years. And when they built the golden calf, when Moses went up the mountain and they built the golden calf, God said, I'm going to destroy them and start back with you, Moses. And Moses pleaded to God, and God changed, and God said, okay, and he changed it. He gave him mercy. So his will was to destroy them, but he was merciful. He was merciful on them. We saw in Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham attempted to get mercy by saying, well, what if there 100? What if there's 100 righteous people? What if there are 50 righteous people? Can I get 10? Can I get 5, God? Can I get 5? And so we have the option to plead mercy for God, even for something that we did deserve. All right, so that was the review of the spiritual warfare series so far. Welcome, Saba. I don't know if I said welcome already. So that was a review of the spiritual warfare so far. Any thoughts, comments, or questions so far? No? Okay. All right, so we'll get to today's lesson. Saba, yes.
No, I'm sorry, but that was the hand wave.
Oh, okay. Yes. Oh, that's right. I gotta distinguish between those hands. Okay. All right. So the first question is, why do bad things happen? This is kind of the common question that people go through life having, and questions, and people lose their Christianity over. And so we'll tackle it with a brief discussion of it, which obviously is we could talk on this for lessons, but we'll give a brief synopsis of it as an introduction to this. Why do bad things happen? So first we'll look at common grace. Who has Matthew 5:43 to 45? We assign the lessons out okay.
So it says, you have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward would you get? And not even the tax collectors doing that. And if you greet only your brothers, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that. Is it 47 right?
That's good. Yeah, 45. Okay. And so that was Jesus speaking, and he said that he talked about how God in verse 45, he causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good. He sends rain to the righteous and the unrighteous. So he's basically saying that God causes the sun to rise. He does good things for the evil people and the good people. So that's common grace. So even non-Christians, God causes the sun to shine. God gives blessings to everyone at some point in time, whether you deserve it or not. So there's common grace that everyone gets. There's a common grace that everyone gets. Everyone gets sunshine. Everyone can get blessings. And then on the other hand, there are bad things that happen regardless to everyone. Who has Psalms 34:19?
Is it 34:9 or 34:19?
34:19.
Oh, 34:19.
Yeah, I think you had it.
Yeah, okay, I got it. The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him through them all.
All right. So the righteous person will have many troubles. So even if you're righteous, you're going to have trouble. So we live in this world. There's just going to be things that happen. So we're going to have trouble regardless. So there's going to be some good things that happen, and there's going to be trouble for everyone. For everyone. But let's look at specifically why are some reasons that some bad things happen sometimes. Okay, so I'll use this example. I've used it before, but it's getting more elaborate. It's getting more elaborate now. So what if I was to tell you that, I think that God doesn't like me because this morning I was in my quiet time and I got hit in the head with a rock. So I think that God doesn't like me. What would you tell me? Or what do you think some reasons might be?
And God has nothing to do with it. You were just there. It was time and chance.
Time and chance, okay. So
Yes.
God. Okay. Any other reasons that it could be?
Maybe God was trying to alert you, that that's the end of your quiet time. It's a wrap. Because you were rocking with
It's like we gotta work on some new signals, God.
Yeah.
Okay, but then what if I told you that? Yeah, those are good answers. What if I told you that? Oh, there's some detail I forgot to put in this. See, I have a tradition that we have in my family. My father did this. My brother, we call it 5 smooth stones. You see, David used 5 smooth stones to kill Goliath.
Yeah.
So we have 5 scriptures. Say at any time in your life, there should be 5 scriptures that you have memorized that work on a certain situation you have. 5 smooth stones. And so in practicing this, what I did do was I picked up 5 rocks and I threw them up in the air. I picked up 5 rocks during my quiet time and I threw them up in the air, but I threw them towards God. So I threw these rocks. So every time I have quiet time, I throw these rocks up towards God. But they're going up. They're not coming towards me. I'm throwing them up. But then sometimes, moments later, rocks fall down from the sky. So if I told you that, what would you tell me? So I think God must have rejected these rocks. I threw these rocks in the air, and then these rocks came falling down.
That's just gravity, Michael.
That's just gravity? Yeah.
What goes up must come down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just gravity.
Right.
So
I mean, that kind of tells that you have to search yourself. It's not just what you're sending something out, or something that's coming to you. It's just the way it is.
very good. Yeah. So that's sowing and reaping. Sowing and reaping. So sometimes stuff happens, it's just a natural consequence of our actions. We did something is going to naturally happen. You know, God didn't cause gravity to act because I threw a rock up. It's like gravity is just there. The way the world system is set up, God didn't have to intervene. The system, so even if I didn't know about gravity, if I didn't understand gravity, it doesn't matter. Gravity is there. So sometimes sowing and reaping, there are consequences for our actions. And it's not God. God didn't have to intervene. God set up the system, and the system is just doing what the system does. You know, the system is just doing, you know, so it's a natural consequence. It's a natural consequence of my action. So that's the first reason sometimes bad things happen. It's just a natural consequence. It's a natural consequence of my action. And so the second reason is, you know, so we're talking about gravity. So if we're looking at science, you know, there's also, we talked about there's something called reticular activating system. It's like a part connected to your brain, a part of your brain. It filters what information comes into your brain. And this is the reason why, like for instance, if you're going to go buy a Toyota, and now all of a sudden you get to Toyota and you start driving down the road and you start noticing all these Toyotas. You start noticing Toyotas everywhere. You know, but it wasn't because those Toyotas weren't there. So like all your life, Toyotas were all around you. Now that you own a Toyota, you're noticing all these Toyotas. It wasn't that they weren't there. It was just that your brain filtered them out. So there's a lot of reality that your brain filters out, and you only allow in what you're focused on, or what you believe, or what your goals are, or what you fear. So there's certain parts of reality. So if you think that everybody hates people with black hair, you're going to see stuff, hateful things happening to you, and you're going to associate it with that being because I have black hair. People hate me because of that, or people don't like short people, or people don't like this. So you're going to filter out information and your belief. So your brain automatically does that. So your beliefs impact your perception of bad things happening to you.
Yeah, sometimes I'll be in a discussion with someone, and I think of a clear example, and they may not like the term or something or a situation that's going on, and I'll ask them, what do you make that mean? Because we make things mean that something that it may not be.
Right.
So their perception is stronger than sometimes reality.
Yeah, or it is the reality. Yeah. So your perception can filter it, but then also your belief in the sense that, so if I believe that God hates me and I'm the one throwing up rocks, so I may not know exactly how to angle a rock to make it land exactly where I want, but subconsciously I do. Subconsciously, my subconscious mind, I know like exactly how to throw a rock to land on my head. So if I have a belief that bad things are going to happen to me, I could be subconsciously causing it by the angle I throw the rock up. Like I may throw these rocks up every morning at an angle where it's going to come down and hit my head, and I'm not even realizing, because I believe that bad things are going to happen to me. I believe that bad things are going to happen to me, and so I'm actually causing my actions to get the results that I don't want, because I believe that's what's going to happen. So those are some reasons. So those are some natural reasons. Then also we have supernatural reasons. We have an enemy. We have an enemy, the devil. We have an enemy, the devil. So the devil could impact a rock. And so who has John 10, 9 through 10?
I do. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. He will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full.
Okay, so we have an enemy that wants to kill, steal, and destroy. And so that was Job's missing information. He didn't realize that there was an enemy out there. You know, his friends would tell him, you must have done something wrong. And he was saying, hey, it must have been you, God. But they didn't realize, oh, there's another party. There's a devil involved. So that's another factor in the situation. We have a devil that is our enemy. A devil, we have demons, demonic world that are against us. So that's another reason that bad things could happen to us. And then another reason we have that bad things could happen to us. Who has Job 5:17-18?
That is me. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I call it the joke. Blessed is the one whom God corrects. So do not despise the discipline of the Almighty. For he wounds, but he also binds up. He injures, but his hands also heal.
All right. So could be God correcting you. So some things happen because God is correcting you. But God correcting you is God trying to change you. God trying to grow you. God trying to develop your character. God trying to direct you, or maybe direct you into a certain direction when something bad happens. And I saw an interesting video. So I opened up with the question, what would it look like if God hated you? What would it look like if God hated you? And we say, you know, God loves everybody, but there is one instance he said that Jacob I love and Esau I hated. And we're not really clear on that, but I saw a very interesting clip on that in terms of discussing that. And so I want to share that.
I want you to think about this. There is a passage in the scriptures that says this: Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. Now, we have to ask ourselves a question. How did God manifest his love toward Jacob? And how did he manifest his hatred or wrath toward Esau? This is very, very helpful. To understand this will help you understand something about God being your Father. If you look at Esau's life, God fulfilled every promise he made regarding Esau. He blessed Esau with wealth, with power. He became a great leader, a great nation. God blessed Esau. So how is it that God's hatred was manifested toward Esau? God never disciplined Esau. He let Esau be Esau. He never intervened in Esau's life. He never worked to make Esau holy. He just cut the rope and let Esau go and live exactly like Esau wanted to live. Now, how did God manifest his love toward Jacob? He beat Jacob every day of his life. Look at Jacob. He would not allow Jacob to continue on as Jacob. Jacob was the deceiver. But when Jacob became a son, God said, Jacob, it's going to take a while, but I'm going to change you from a deceiver into a prince. And you look at the life of Jacob, the trials he suffered, the things that he went through, so that when he entered into the promised land, once again, he entered in limping. He entered in limping. Why? Because here's what you need to understand, especially in America. The goal of God in your life is not prosperity. It's not health. It's not wealth. And it's most certainly not your best life now. God's goal, if you belong to him as a child, is to make you holy, to conform you to the image of Christ. He will cleanse you from your filthiness. He will cleanse you from your idols. And he will be very zealous in doing that. He will do anything that is necessary to make you conform to the image of his Son. Is he doing that in your life? Is he? I want you to think about this.
Right.
There is a passage in the...
All right. So yeah, I thought that was really deep.
Very powerful.
Yeah. So God hated Esau, but his hate wasn't, "Oh, I'm going to do bad things to Esau." His hate was, he still was a child of Abraham. He still had the Abrahamic blessing, the Abrahamic promises. So God fulfilled those. He said, "Everything I promised you, I'm going to give you. Other than that, you do you." And it worked out pretty good. Esau was rich. But Jacob, he had to become Israel. So God couldn't let him just do him. God had to intervene in his life to change him from Jacob to Esau. So God will intervene in your life if you allow him to change you. So the fact that God is disciplining you, that you're going through trials, could be God changing you into who he wants you to be, into directing you into your destiny. So that's another reason that you could be going through some trials. That Jesus went through the wilderness. The children of Israel had to go through the wilderness. David was anointed king, but he had to go through the wilderness. A lot of times we have to go through something in order to become what we need to become. All right. Any thoughts? Any thoughts on that? Okay. And then the last reason someone mentioned is that bad things could happen is time and chance. Ecclesiastes 9:11. Who has that? Or
That would be me.
okay.
I have seen something else under the sun. The race is not. Oh wait, am I reading the right one?
Yes, you are.
The race is not the swift or the battle to the strong, nor does food come to the wise, or wealth to the brilliant, or favor to the learned, but time and chance happen to them all.
Right. So some things happen. They weren't divinely coordinated before the creation of the earth. Some stuff just happens. It's within the things that God would allow, and it just happens. If I throw 20 balled up pieces of paper towards a trash can, 2 of them went in. It wasn't God divinely directing that piece of paper into the trash. It just time and chance. It just happened. That's just how it happened. So sometimes bad things just happen. You rolled over a pothole. Sometimes bad things just happen. So those are the 5 or 6 options. Those are different options of why bad things happen. And then we also have to realize that Jesus. So we talked about gravity and nature. Jesus is above the natural laws. His first miracle was turning water into wine. Jesus walked on water. Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. So we can petition God to do things that are outside of the natural order of things. We could petition for God to do things, the miraculous things, but we saw that when Jesus was in the wilderness, who has Matthew 4:5-7?
I got that.
Okay.
Or the NIV version, Matthew 4:5-7. Okay. Then the devil took him to the holy city and had him stand on the highest ground of the temple. "If you are the Son of God," he said, "throw yourself down, for it is written, He will command His angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike the foot against a stone." Jesus answered him, "It is also written, do not put the Lord your God to the test."
And sometimes I wonder, well, what was this temptation about? It's like, jump off the cliff so the angels will catch you. It's like, was that a bad thing? And so basically the temptation was it was a temptation to petition for God to interfere with the natural order of things, an abuse of power. You know, it was an abuse. It was an abuse of his power. You know, he could ask God to interfere with things, but that was a temptation. Temptation meaning that he shouldn't have. You know, I'm not going to do it just to prove to you something. I'm not going to do it to prove to you. So most of Jesus' miracles were to prove that he was the Messiah. So that's kind of a side note. All right, so now we will get into curses. So first we'll look at the curses in the law. The curses in the law. All right, so this is Alvin. You're up. So we're going to look at the curses. There are a lot of curses in the law. In the Old Testament law, Deuteronomy, Numbers, it's a list of blessings and curses, a lot of blessings and curses. So we'll read some of them. So the first part is probably familiar. You may have heard it in some of your churches. Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 6. It's a passage we love to quote.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, so now if you faithfully obey the Lord your God and are careful to follow all his commands, I am giving you today, the Lord your God will put you far above all the nations of the earth. All these blessings will come and overtake you because you obey the Lord your God. You will be blessed in the city and blessed in the country. Your descendants will be blessed, and your lands produce, and the offspring of your livestock, including the young of your herds, and the newborn of your flocks. Your basket and kneading bowl will be blessed. You will be blessed when you come in and blessed when you go out.
All right, so we hear that often. There's songs about it, you know, blessed coming in and blessed going out. You'll be blessed in the city, blessed in the country, blessed in the field. And we like to recite those verses. You know, we speak those as declarations. You know, this is God speaking to Israel. So hey, we can apply that to us. But then we skip the rest of the verse. We skip the rest of the verse. So then he continues, okay, well, what if we don't do those things? You have 28, 15 to 21.
Yeah. But if you do not obey the Lord your God by carefully following all his commands and statutes I am giving you today, all these curses will come and overtake you. You will be cursed in the city and cursed in the country. Your basket and kneading bowl will be cursed. Your descendants will be cursed, and your land's produce, the young of your herds, and the newborn of your flocks. You will be cursed when you come in and cursed when you go out.
All right.
Were you able to hear me?
Yes. All right, thank you. Yes. And so we usually don't read that part. So the law is not just blessings, it's blessings and curses. If you do this, you get blessings. If you don't do it, you don't get blessings. So these are from the law. These are from the law, from the Old Testament. And we're going to speak to shortly how that applies to us. But first we'll get into, today we're going to talk about generational curses. It's something that is talked about a lot now in churches, or more we talk about generational curses and different definitions depending on what church you're in, what it means. So I'll read a few of the definitions of what a generational curse is. What is a generational curse? I'll read a few definitions. I'll put some of them up on the screen. One definition says a generational curse is an act of willful disobedience of God that started in one generation, and with every generation it got worse. He says what was in the closet with granddad is in the street with the grandchildren. A curse is when something has been given, so a second definition, a curse is when something has been giving a legal right to operate in your life and in your family's life. It's a weight holding you down. It is cyclical in nature, and no matter what you do, it keeps repeating. Another definition, generational curse, it groups all of these into it. It says it's related to familiar spirits, and depending on what you're looking at, that has different definitions. Familiar spirits, and it's things like alcoholism, death, molestation, miscarriage, accidents, intense marital strife, barrenness, the almost there anointing. So it's like I'm almost successful, but then it falls apart. I almost got married, but then it didn't happen. I almost got a promotion. Babies out of wedlock, generation after generation. Financial issues, generation after generation. You can't grow spiritually. Buried talent. So you have these talents, but you never make anything of them. Disappearance of those who desire to help. So people show up wanting to help you, then they disappear. Chain illnesses. So everybody's getting sick. You keep getting sick, or you keep getting problem after problem, or you're struggling tirelessly but not achieving anything. So that's another definition. Another definition is cycles in general. Another definition says a generational curse is believed to be passed down from one generation to another due to rebellion against God. If your family line is marked by divorce, incest, poverty, anger, or ungodly pattern, you're likely under a generational curse. The Bible says that these curses are tied to choice. Deuteronomy 30:19 says we can either choose life and blessings or death and cursing. So this one's saying it's based on your choice. And someone else just makes a statement saying you could be a victim of a story that predates your existence. So there's a few different definitions of what general curses is, but in general, it's speaking of something that happens in one generation, and then the children get the same issue, and then the children get the same issue, and it's referring to usually of a spiritual nature. So maybe there's a demonic, maybe someone cursed your grandfather and it went down it went to your whole family tree, or somehow there's demonic involvement is the general concept of it when we hear it used in churches, and so that's what generational curses are. That's what they are. It's basically something that's passed down from generation to generation to generation. And and depending on where the definition, it may or may not have a spiritual. But then there's also the concept, I think a common concept is that it's God. It's God that's cursing you. It's God that cursed you and is cursing your family, and that's going down. So that's another concept. So then the question is this concept biblical? Is this concept of generational curses a biblical concept? You know, could God be cursing you and your family, and could you be suffering for something your grandfather did, your great grandfather did? So first we'll look at where it comes from. So we'll look at scriptures that's usually used to support it as a biblical case in the law. Who has Deuteronomy 5:8-10?
I do.
Okay.
You shall not make yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments.
All right, so that's Deuteronomy 5:8-10. It's also in Exodus. It's pretty much a similar passage. So he's saying that. So this is talking about graving images and idols. It's saying that if you worship them, it's going to punish you, but then the punishment will pass down third and fourth generations. So first we'll note that it does say, of those who hate me. It says third and fourth generation of those who hate me. Of those who hate me. And so various commentaries, I know John Piper mentions that the sin of the fathers are punished in the children by becoming the children's own sin. So it's the children that you have to do the sin. The children are passed down if you do the sin, not just because they did it. And so it was sort of ambiguous to us but apparently it was also sort of ambiguous to the Israelites. So God actually clarified it later, because they were saying that, if the father bites a grape, then the children's teeth are sour. So that was a saying, basically you're paying for what your father did. And so God actually clarified it in the Bible to specifically what he was saying. So who has Ezekiel 18, 2 through 4? Or I guess you can do 2 through 4, and then you can go ahead and do 19 to 22. I think you were doing both. Who was that? Was that Silva? Yeah, I think that was Silva. So we have Ezekiel 18.
Does you know he's on mute?
I don't know. Well, I'll read it. All right.
Okay, I got it. I'm so sorry. I was.
Oh, no problem. Okay.
Let me go back to it.
Yeah, Ezekiel 18, 2 through 4. And then you could read verses 19 to 22. So you can read the whole chapter 18, Ezekiel 18, if you're interested. He gives makes it very clear there.
Okay, here we go. What do you people mean by quoting this proverb about the land of Israel? The fathers eat sour grapes, and the children's teeth are set on edge. As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, you will no longer quote this proverb in Israel. For every living soul belongs to me. The Father as well as the Son, both alike belong to me. The soul who sins is the one who will die. Okay. So I skip to
19.
Okay. 16, 18, 19. Okay. Yet you ask, why does the Son not share the guilt of his father? Since the Son has done what is just and not right, and has been careful to keep all my decrees, he will surely live. The soul who sins is the one who will die. The Son will not share the guilt of the Father, nor will the Father share the guilt of the Son. The righteousness of the righteous man will be credited to him, and the wickedness of the wicked will be charged against him. 21. But if a wicked man turns away from all the sins he has committed and keeps all my decrees and does what is just and right, he will surely live. He will not die. None of the offenses he has committed will be remembered against him. Because of the righteous things he has done, he will live.
All right. All right, thank you. So God clarifies that he's not passing down sins from generation to generation. So God clarifies that the son isn't going to pay for the father's sins. The father doesn't pay for the son's sins. So it doesn't get passed down from generation to generation. It's passed down if you do the same sin. And this is in the law. So it was only passed down if you did the same sin. So you weren't accountable for your ancestors' sin in the law. But then, so if we take it a step further, so that was in the law for those under the law. So even if you were under the law, you wouldn't be responsible for your parents' sin. So then we go to the question, well, are we even under the law? So who has Galatians 3, 13 through 14?
Galatians 3, 13, I got that.
Okay.
Let's get that real quick. Okay, all right. Okay, here we go. Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. For it is written, curses everyone who is hung on a pole. He redeemed us in order that the blessing given to Abraham might come to the Gentiles through Christ Jesus, so that by faith we might receive the promise of the Spirit.
All right. So Jesus became a curse so we wouldn't bear the curses of the law. So as Christians, so that we read part of chapter 28, chapter 27, 29, there's like lists and lists. If you do this, you get this curse, this. So there's lists and lists of curses. So as Christians, we don't fall. Jesus took all of those curses for us. Oh, did you say something?
You had froze for a moment. Yeah, you were frozen.
Oh, okay. Oh, it says connection unstable. Oh, okay. So, yeah, so there's a long list of curses. If you read chapter 28, Deuteronomy 28, it's blessed, blessings in the field, blessing in the field. And then it's an even longer list of curses. You're going to curse this, curse that. Chapter 27, this curse, this curse, this curse. But this says that Jesus took the curses of the law for us. So even if we didn't meet the requirement of the law, we don't get the curses that were as part of the old covenant. So the old covenant, so basically a covenant says, if you do, these are the agreements. If you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen. If you do this, you get blessed. If you do this, you get cursed. If you do this, you get blessed. So all of the agreements in the law of the curses, Jesus took those curses for us. So even if we violate something in the law, Jesus took that curse for us. So the curse that we would have taken, Jesus took that. So the penalty, the curses of the law, Jesus' death on the cross covered that for us. Covered that for us. So even if your parents had, so first, in the law, your parents didn't pass down anything. And second, if they had, Jesus covered it. Jesus covered it. So a curse from God can't pass down from your parents to you. A curse from God can't pass down from your parents to you. And okay, so let's look at Romans 5, 1-2.
Therefore, since we have been justified through faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have gained access by faith into this grace in which we now stand, and we boast in the hope of the glory of God.
All right, so we've been justified by faith. So the reason I put that in there, so last week I was using a term that is about how, a demon having legal access. That's a term that we use, that's used often in the church, the legal access. And so Jesus, we're justified by faith. We're justified by faith. So there is no legal access to us for any law from God. There is no legal access to a Christian for the enemy for any law from God. Any law from God. So we are right standing. We are right standing. Okay. All right, Kenneth, good to see you. So we are in right standing. So a Christian, not only can we not have a generational curse from God, we can't have any of the curses from God as a Christian. So none of the curses from God apply to us as Christians. So we can't be cursed from God for something that we did. We can't be cursed from God for something that we did. We can still be attacked by the enemy, and we will be, who has Ephesians 4, 26-27.
I do. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. And do not give the devil a foothold.
All right. Yeah, so don't give the devil a foothold or an opportunity. So your sin does somehow give the devil some opportunity, but it's not a curse from God. So you don't have a curse from God. So God will not curse you even if you sin. But although your sin will assist the devil in attacking you. So be angry, but don't sin. But it's not a curse. So a curse is like, if there's a condition that's been put on your life that attracts woes, attracts negative. So it's not from God. So you can't be cursed from God as a Christian. Any thoughts or questions or comments on that?
So I guess curses come from, I don't know, people only. You can't be cursed by God.
So someone can wish a curse on you. But yeah, like we read earlier, it has to have a reason to land. It has to have a reason to land. So there's a caveat. There's a caveat. So you can't be cursed from God. And we looked at I was gonna do a lot of this. I'm just gonna try to bring a portion of this in and maybe bring it in later, but just enough to get the point across. We looked at Elohim, how the idols, when people worship idols, and God said, you should have no other God before me. That was the word Elohim. And so those were other demons. Those are other spirit. And it talks about in Job 1 how God was meeting with the sons of God and the devil showed up. So there are other spiritual beings. And the Israelites turned to worship them. The other nations worshiped other beings. When God called Abraham, he called him out of worshiping these other beings. So they weren't just idols. So they're idols, but they're actual beings behind these idols. And with the risk of only giving a portion of this, I'll talk. So let's look at 1 Kings 11:33. Who has that?
I will do this because they have forsaken me and worship Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, and Molech, the god of the Ammonites, and have not walked in obedience to me, nor done what is right in my eyes, nor kept my decrees and laws as David, Solomon's father, did.
All right. So God is referring to them as Asherah, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of the Moabites. And the word God is Elohim. So Elohim is, in the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and earth, but it's the lowercase Elohim. It's similar to how we have a lowercase g for God. So it's pretty much analogous. It's a lowercase. So there are other beings that these people are worshiping. There are other beings, and they're not just random demons that these people are worshiping. And I think I'll go into it deeper next time. But so let's look at Deuteronomy 29:26-27.
I got that.
Okay.
Alrighty. They went off and worshiped other gods and bowed down to them. Gods they did not know, gods he had not given them. Therefore, the Lord's anger burned against this land, so that he brought on it all the curses written in this book.
All right. So since they worshiped other gods, God brought curses on the Israelites. Mm-hmm. So in the Kings, we saw that the goddess of the Sidonians. So the Sidonians had a god, the Moabs had a god. So every nation had their own god. And then here in Deuteronomy 29:26-27, it says that the Israelites went and worshiped other gods, but it says gods that had not been assigned to them, implying that they were assigned to other people. So other nations could worship other gods. They were to be administered by these other gods, but these beings aren't supposed to accept worship. So when they allow themselves to be worshiped, they become fallen. They become a fallen spirit, son of God, fallen angel, we may call them. even though they're over this nation to administer it, now they've become fallen. And so these are when Paul talks about powers, principalities, authorities. These are fairly high-level spirit beings over these nations, And so we can't be, as a Christian, you can't be cursed from God. But the Israelites turned to these other gods. So someone could come into a contract with one of these other beings. So as a Christian, you're not going to be cursed from God and generational curses, but someone could come into a contract with other spirit beings, or even you can just think of demons. You can come into a contract with demons. Covenant, same way God has a covenant, through various occult practices, through witchcraft. So if someone has come into a contract with one of these demons, contract with one of these other beings, a contract has in it, as we saw, if you do this, you get blessings. If you do this, you get curses. If you do this, you get blessings. So if you have entered into a contract, or someone has entered into a contract, there are blessings and curses associated with that contract. There are blessings associated with that contract.
So, Michael, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Like, let's say, even though you're a Christian, if you decide to go down the path of astrology or witchcraft, then you're opening up yourself to potentially get cursed because of that contract that you went into with that occult or whatever.
Yes. And but then so that's at one level, but at a higher level there are people who, so in the same way that God had a covenant, if we do this specific contract, people will enter into really like literal contracts with these other beings, some organizations. And so, and they'll start off, like God, I was the God of Abraham. God, gives the historical background, give the stipulations, give the blessings and curses as a part of the contract, the witnesses. And so if you had an ancestor that did that, it could have impacts on you. So God isn't going to curse you from what your parents did. But there could be some effects still. So as a Christian, you have protection, but there could be some effects. And so, the curse isn't technically still bound to you, but demons strategize against families. So demons will strategize against families. So God, you don't have to worry about being cursed from God if you're a Christian. If you had some type of agreement with some other being, then you do need to worry, but it's still covered with the blood of Jesus. So demons will strategize against families. Even if they can't hold a curse, they're still going to, if your great-grandfather had an agreement with this demon, they're going to know, okay, this guy was an alcoholic, so we're going to plan for the next 5 generations. We're going to attack this family with alcoholism. We're going to attack this family with molestation. We're going to attack this family. So the demons understand human nature, understand that what this person struggled with, their children are likely going to struggle with it. And so demons will have family strategies to attack the family. So it's not technically a curse, but you've drawn the attention of this demon. And so demons will come at you with temptation, torment, which could be thoughts, dreams, or just some type of way to scare you, and deception. So the demons will have strategies against you based on your family. So that's the only sense that there could be from a spiritual level, that's the only sense that there could be a generational curse from a spiritual level. So then we'll talk about from a natural level as well. Any thoughts or questions on that? All right. So the final thought on it is, so a Christian can't be generation cursed from God. You can be targeted from demon, but as Christians, we aren't powerless victims to something that's been done to us. There's something that's put over us, some scenario that's put on us. Romans 8:35-37 says, "Who will separate us from the love of Christ? Will tribulation or trouble or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword? Just as it is written, for your sake we are killed all day long. We were regarded as sheep to be slaughtered. But in all these things we overwhelmingly conquer through him who loved us." So as Christians, we have the power to conquer. We have the power to conquer any enemy that comes towards us. And on another final thought on curses is that how, Jesus and the disciples, whenever they healed someone, they say, your faith has healed you. Your faith has made you whole. We see that, even doctors now, they give you drugs that are called placebos. And when there's something that they don't know what it is, they don't know how to solve it, they may give you a placebo drug. And a lot of times people will get well because they thought that this drug was the fix. And so your faith in the strength of the demons also helps to empower them. Your faith in the strength of the demons also helps empower them. And so let me give you it's a 5-minute story. Don't want to play that. I guess I'll play it. All right. Here's a story. Has anybody heard of Bunker Bean?
No.
Here's a story of a guy, Bunker Bean, that I made.
Hello. Have you heard the story of Bunker Bean? There was a movie made about him in 1936. He grew up as an orphan and grew up to be a short, meek, mild-mannered man, really low self-esteem. He got a job in an office. He was a lowly clerk and sometimes took notes for the boss. His coworkers would bully him and tease him and send him on errands saying that the boss told him to do it when the boss never actually told him to do it, taking advantage of him. The boss liked his work, but he would never tell him that. He underpaid him, showed him underappreciation. Eventually, a fortune teller moved into his building. So he went to the fortune teller to find out about himself. She asked him how much money he had. And he ended up giving her a large sum of money. And what she told him was that, "Oh, I see. In a previous life, you were Napoleon." "Me? No, not me." "Yes, you were Napoleon." "Oh, wow." So with this newfound knowledge, he headed to the library. He studied and researched Napoleon to find out who this Napoleon was. Found out that he was a general who conquered much of the world. He said, "Wow, this was me." So he started to get a little more confident, started to take on leadership responsibilities, and his work started improving. Started getting a few more opportunities at work. An uncle of his had passed away and had owned a patent that his company was going to use. And his boss was in the middle of tricking him out of the patent for a small amount of money when it was worth a fortune. He went back to the fortune teller and asked her, could she tell him more? And she asked him, "Well, do you have any more money?" He gave her more money and she said, "Yes, I'm seeing before you were Napoleon, you were an Egyptian pharaoh. You were Ramses." He said, "No, not me. Yes, you were an Egyptian pharaoh." So he went to study Ramses. He's like, wow, he was a great leader. So he even got more confident and he started dressing better and things started going better for him. And the boss had a daughter who never paid him any attention, never paid him any mind, ignored him in the office. And he eventually stood up to the boss and said, hey, this patent is worth a lot more and I need more for it. And the daughter saw him stand up to the boss and got impressed. And she was impressed by him and she had never noticed him before. And so things started looking better for him. And then eventually he saw the police had pulled her over, and he went over there and confidently talked the police out of giving her a ticket. And eventually, and told her that he was going to take her out. Took her on dates and started dating her and proposed to her, and they were about to get married. So things were looking good for him. But then all of a sudden, on his way home one day, he saw the police had the fortune teller dragging her out of the building. And he says, hey, what's going on? And they said, yeah, we're arresting her. She's been lying to people and pretending to tell people's fortunes and stealing money from people. And it's like, no, she's legitimate. And he asked her, you're legitimate, aren't you? And she confessed to him, no, I just made those stories up. I was lying to you. You were never any of those people. So then he was dejected. Oh my goodness, I was never Napoleon. Oh my goodness, I was never an Egyptian pharaoh. I knew I was a loser. I knew I was a nobody. He felt dejected and he went back to the boss's daughter. He was going to call off the engagement, tell her that he was a phony. So he tried to call it off and she asked him what was going on. Eventually he told her the full story and she said, well, no, it was you who stood up to my father. It was you who was making this business deal. It wasn't Napoleon. It wasn't Ramses. It's you. It's you that won my love. He's like, oh, yeah, I guess it was me. And so she instilled confidence in him. And then eventually they got married and things were a lot better for Bunker Bean and his life ended up great. What this story tells us is that sometimes the thing limiting you in life is your belief in yourself. The only thing holding you back are the stories that you're telling yourself. So why don't you believe that you're great and live a life accordingly?
All right. Bunker Bean. Bunker Bean. It was a movie in 1936 and a book. So sometimes it's what you're believing. So believing. If you believe you're under a curse, you may live your life accordingly. So sometimes what you believe is holding you back. So you can't be on a generational curse from God. You can't be under a generational curse from God. All right. So next up, we'll look at natural causes of generational curse. So generational curse is not just a Christian term. Generational curse is also a psychologist use the term as well. And it's controversial. You know, a lot of psychologists don't like to talk about it because it seems spiritual. So in psychology, a generational curse is a habit or behavior that has been passed from one generation to the next. And so I saw an interesting study in psychology today. It was saying how, well, not a study, it was just a discussion about generational curses. It was saying that how when in a woman, the eggs that she's going to produce, they're all in her womb when she's born. And so they were saying that how then that means that, well, let me read it. All the woman's eggs can carry in her ovaries while she is a fetus is in her mother's womb. When your mother was in your grandmother's womb, she carried at that time the egg that eventually became you. So there was a time when you were actually in your grandmother's womb. And so this means that part of your mother and your grandmother all shared the same biological environment at one point. So in a sense, you were exposed to your grandmother. You were exposed to your grandmother's environment. And so generationally, there are things that are passed down. There are things that are passed down genetically. So in your genes, you can have a predisposition to alcohol. You can have a predisposition to addictions, to different things, and that will get passed down from generation to generation. You can have health conditions that will get passed down, mental illness. But in the same sense, you have things that you learn that are passed down. So you learn your coping mechanisms. So when you get anxious, when you get depressed, how do you deal with it? You know, some people will go get a drink. Some people will go and, I don't know, drive a car fast. Some people will go and do whatever you do. Go shopping. Some people go shopping. And so you see your parents, how they deal with it, and you deal with the same. You see how your parents deal with conflict. You see their argument styles. So a lot of times we argue the way our parents argue. You know, for one person, yelling and cursing and screaming when you're mad is normal. For another person, you should never bring up conflict. When people are mad, you never bring anything. There's never more than a whisper in the house. And you learn what your parents did is normal. So that's come down in the generation. Their parenting techniques, the relationship roles. What should a husband do? What should a wife do? The expectations, your mindsets. You know, whether you feel like you're a victim mentality versus a growth mentality, an abundance mindset versus an orphan mindset, whether you're thankful or not, whether you feel entitled to everything, you know, that's passed down from your parents. So in that sense, you are inheriting, and based on that, you know, you're going to make the same decisions. So based on that, you're going to make some of the same decisions that your parents made. You know, when you get anxious, you're going to turn to alcohol. Are you going to abuse the kid or you know, yell and curse at people because, you know, so you learn that from your parents, and that's going to get passed down. And then you may pass that down as well. And so in that sense, generational curses get passed down naturally as well. And then there's a term called transgenerational trauma, which refers to a trauma that doesn't end with an individual. Instead, it lingers and gnaws through one generation to the next. Families with history of unresolved trauma, depression, anxiety, and addiction may continue to pass maladaptive coping strategies and distrustful views of life onto future generations. In this way, one can repeat the same patterns and attitudes of former generations, regardless of whether they're all healthy or not. So it's not necessarily a spiritual thing. You know, it's not necessarily a curse. You know, you could be doing the same thing that your parents did, who did the same thing their parents did, and it's natural. But whether it's a curse, even from the curses from God, it was based on your decision. You still had the option to not. If you didn't do the sin, then God wouldn't curse you. And so it's the same in life. You know, there's something called epigenetics. You can actually change your DNA. So if you have addictive patterns in it, you can actually change in your lifetime. You can change your DNA. So you can inherit the ways and tendencies of your parents. So some recommendations they give are to have open conversations with your parents about their lived experiences and how they coped with them. To notice any patterns that you have, attitudes and narratives from your family, and see how you're acting those out. And then for those things, so that was kind of what we did. So we've been on this series, Seeking Wholeness, for 2.5 years. So the first, a bunch of them, we were covering things of that nature. So if you look on the website, we have previous lessons. Wounds of the past is one. How emotional wounds impact relationships. Mindsets that will change your life. Change your focus, change your future. Dealing with the hurt, fear and shame. The story you tell yourself. Changing the story you tell yourself. The Christian mindset. Coping mechanisms. Emotional triggers. Dealing with anxiety. So we've covered a lot of these topics, and they're on the website. So we have full 1.5, 2-hour Bible studies on those. On unchaineddisciples.com. It's in the email. So if you want to see some of those previous ones, that was kind of the nature of the Bible study before we got into the spiritual warfare. All right, so that's transgenerational war, or generational curses. So Any thoughts or comments? Okay. So let's look at a kind of what you generally hear. So this is kind of the dealing with demonic warfare, dealing with curses. This is what we generally hear in churches, which is not.
Witchcraft is real. And the only reason why a generational curse is capable of plaguing an entire bloodline for centuries is because we are not equipped to engage in spiritual warfare. I have these sticky notes all around my house, but the ones specifically by my bed are the declarations for the protection of my family. Every mouth that says it's an abomination for my family to prosper, be silenced in the name of Jesus. Evil powers shouting against the acceleration of my family, die in the name of Jesus. One thing this mama gonna do is anoint that household. I'm gonna protect my family the best that I possibly can. I ask God every single day for spiritual stamina to protect my husband, my kids, my team. But I mean, I wouldn't come up against me and mine because listen, the way God set this up, he look out for his. Call me a cuckoo Christian.
All right. So prayer is what we talked about last week is a weapon we use against the enemy. A lot of times, we'll hear, you have certain specific patterns, specific things you have to say it a specific way. I don't necessarily. These beings bless people with blessings. They worship them. Ooh. Okay, wait a minute. Let me get through this. Then I'll get to that question. So against spirits, so we can pray. We want to pray against them. There's not necessarily specific words that you have to say. You want to understand what it means to pray in the name of Jesus. The primary weapon we talked about is the armor of God. It's the armor of God. It's the belt of living truthfulness and righteousness. That the primary weapon against demonic warfare. Knowing the gospel, believing the gospel, believing that you're saved. Faith, having faith in God, having faith in your salvation, and then following the sword is following the leading of the Holy Spirit. Following the leading of the Holy Spirit. That's our primary weapon against spiritual warfare. So if you had involvement, if your ancestors had involvement in witchcraft, the cult, or some type of contracts, you can pray to renounce that. You can pray and ask God to renounce that. Any involvement that they had in that, any involvement that you had in that. Fasting is another good strategy, and worship. Exodus 23:25-26 says, "Worship the Lord your God, and his blessings will be on your food and water. I will take away sickness from among you, and none will miscarry or be barren in your land. I will give you a full lifespan." So worshiping God is another defense against the enemy, worshiping God. Let's see. Do I want to do this? Okay, let me read it. Can these beings bless people with blessings if they worship them, for example? So that's the intent why a lot of people worship these other gods, is for blessing. That's why actually the Israelites, that's why they built the golden calf, because they felt that the calf was going to protect them. They're like, Moses is left, we need something. So people believe that these beings can bless them, but as Christians we don't want to enter any contracts with other beings, because and you won't understand what comes with it. So the beings, they promise blessings and perhaps even do bless, but it comes at a cost. All right. Now close with this final story, final example. I've been January, beginning of January. A lot of people are, the gyms are packed. The gyms are packed now. The gyms are packed. I used to go to the gym a lot. During COVID, I started walking outside and realized, I can do a mile walk now, and I'll be, I can be on top of a hill somewhere. I can walk Eagle Rock or climb somewhere or Maury Point. I'll be by the ocean after a mile, after 2 miles, But when you're in the gym, you walk and you're sweating and you get 2 miles and then you realize, hey, I'm still on this cycle. I'm still on this cycle. And so a lot of us see that in our lives. January 21st. It's like, okay, I've tried all these things with relationship, with getting a relationship or in my relationships, but hey, I'm still stuck in this cycle. I tried to kick this habit. I tried to stop drinking, whatever, but now I seem to be in a cycle. I've tried this with my finances. I stopped going to Starbucks, but now I'm in a cycle. So a lot of times we're in cycles in our life. We're in cycles in our lives. And a lot of times generational curses, people relate them to the cycles. They say, if you're in a cycle, then it's a generational curse. And I guess a lot of times the convenience of that is, if it's a curse, then I could just have somebody say this prayer and it'll be done. But whereas if it's something in my flesh, then it's not that easy. It's not as easy. So a lot of times, so I'll read 2 Corinthians 10, 3-4, what Paul says. What Paul says in 2 Corinthians 10, 3-4. It says, "For though we live in the world, we do not wage war against the world. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds." So the weapons we fight with, we're not fighting against the weapons of the world. He's saying, hey, we're fighting a spiritual battle. But he says the weapons we use, they aren't to crush demons. The weapons we use aren't to, change the atmosphere. The weapons we use are to break strongholds. Strongholds are your patterns of thinking. So a lot of time breaking a cycle isn't necessarily casting the demon out. It's changing how you think. A lot of times it's changing how we think. It's not a demon that's holding back. It's your stronghold. It's your thinking. So a lot of times we have beliefs that are contrary to what God says that are holding us back. We may have belief about relationships, beliefs about gender roles, beliefs about money that are in contradiction to what God's word says, and that could be what's holding us back. So, we might want to take a look at the book of Proverbs. Proverbs talks about don't get into debt. Proverbs a book, the different instructions in the Bible. So a lot of times it may be our strongholds that are holding us back and not necessarily a demon. So let's walk. So I guess for the first lesson of the year, one exercise you can do, take home is tonight sit on the side of your bed. Sit on the side of your bed and ask yourself, what's one thing that I could change, one thing that I could stop doing, that if I stopped doing it, I know my life would be better. Just ask yourself that and be quiet and see what God brings to your mind. What's one thing that I could change that I know my life would be better if I changed it? One thing I could stop doing, one thing that I could start doing, that if I did it, I know my life would be better. And work on that. All right, so let's walk on the way. Let's seek the truth and live the life.
No, that was good way of breaking it down. I feel a little bit more relieved that God does not.
Yeah, I think I may have, so actually I should probably have said it, that I may have, so that's a correction to what I may have implied last week when somebody asked at the end of after the lesson so after fully studying it out, yeah, God isn't cursing you. God isn't cursing you, the Christians.
Yeah. No, but mine was more because the sayings in us humans is that it's a curse from God. You must be cursed by God.
Right.
Someone is doing evil things or being an evil person in general, right? That person is cursed. And so it's just confirmed now that those curses aren't necessarily coming from God Himself as a punishment. You know, it's more like a trial, tribulation that you're going through.
Well, yeah. So that's a good point. So if it is from God, it's not a curse. If it is from God, it's for your benefit.
Strengthening you, yes.
Yeah, directing you. So sometimes He'll close the door, so you'll make the right decision because you wouldn't listen to Him otherwise. So He has to. Yeah. So we saw what He did to Jacob. He had to break Jacob's hip or hurt Jacob's hip.
So, Michael, I have a question about, I don't know if it's a comment or question. We just talked about curse, and if somebody, when you look at a curse, if it's a generational curse, somebody has 2 or 3 kids. One of them is excelling, one of them is having some issues. So I'm thinking, could this be there's a part in the Bible where Apostle Paul says to work out your own salvations. So we get to decide, even though let's say there was a curse, three children, 2 of them or one of them is excelling in everything else, and yet they came from the same parents. Could that be where those choices that they make, the routes that you take in your life, to go the hard way just to be able to train yourself and to give up things and to plan your life and have a purpose for it, and you'll find out what the purpose is, versus someone like the prodigal son that just want to go blow everything they have. So could that be as a result of somebody failing to work out their salvations?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a result of their choices, their own choices.
Yes.
And it's not. Yeah.
Instead of trying to blame the curse on the parents.
Right.
If it was a curse on the parents, why doesn't it affect some of the kids? Why doesn't it affect 1 out of 10 of them?
Right.
So it's just something I was pondering when you were talking about this. Choices that we make to do something with our lives, or just to sit back and just ignore everything else. And then we're trying to blame the consequences of our choices on something that's almost like making an excuse that my parents were cursed. My father was an alcoholic. That's why I'm an alcoholic. But you have a brother, a little brother or an older brother that doesn't touch alcohol. Right. So how do you sweat that up?
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times people may not be using it literally. So I mean, people you can be predisposed to alcohol, genetically and different reasons.
Yes.
So so your parents can put you at a disadvantage, but you still have a choice. So your parents could have put you at a disadvantage, but in most cases you had a choice. If you weren't born like in jail or something, or in captivity or something like that. So you played a part in it.